Okay, so let's call this meeting of the Holmes Hindley Royal Building Committee to order at 6:05 p.m. First order of business is just to approve the minute meetings from the last time we met, which was last Thursday on June the 9th. Can I get a motion to approve? Jameson, can I get a second? Paul, that means you. All in favor? Aye. Randy, say aye if you can hear us.
Aye.
Aye, perfect. Thank you. Doesn't look like any members of the public are here for public comment purposes. In terms of the chair's report, not a heck of a lot. I don't want to steal Eric's thunder. Mostly what's been going on has been Eric has held another meeting with the school district, this time with the principals in attendance. Mike Lynch and Kevin Monrette were there as well, as was Dr. Adley. Dr. Adley and Jill are at 8th grade graduation. But, and then the other thing we're going to talk about this evening is, after we hear from Eric, is get an update from Dave on the OSC GNR submission and what still needs to be done to get us to the point of being able to submit that. So I know in terms of order, we had Eric first, but Dave, do you need to hop for a conflict, or are you?
It's again, I don't want to mess up the agenda on our first call as your CM. So
Well, if Eric doesn't mind it, I think you're probably going to be shorter, and I don't know that it messes up the agenda. If you want to give us,
no, we can just make a motion to move it in the agenda. It's a regular meeting, so we can do that. I will make
we
a
can
motion
move the items in the agenda
that.
if you have somewhere you need to go, and you can give us a quick.
If it's not inconvenient, that would.
So can I get a motion to adjust the agenda? Moved by Sarah, seconded by Jameson. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
So then, Dave, that way you can let us know where you stand on the submission, and then
Sure.
you can hop.
Okay. So yeah. So and Mike, you can correct me if I've kind of misstated. I know. So Ray Wiley came down to Darien on Tuesday and sat with Mike, and Kevin was there as well with you, right? When you were doing this, Mike?
Kevin was actually doing all the entering.
He was, okay.
He was,
all right. So
he was manning the computer.
Yep. So I believe all of the information is into the core system, and then the last thing was the three resolutions as far as the certified copies. Which, Mike, do you know if we have those certified copies?
I picked them up this afternoon from the town clerk, Christy McNamara. And
Okay.
we also got the SCG 053, which is the site,
Yep.
the site plan document we needed. We got that, and we got it signed by Eric and signed by Dr. Adley.
Great.
And the only thing left is the SCG 2000, and it's a cost estimate that the architect has to go online and get permission from the state to enter the numbers onto a form. I can't even get to look at the form. I can only look at the instructions. I tried doing that this afternoon.
Does Eric have access to the site that he needs to be able to do that?
I'm gonna email it to him tomorrow morning.
This is BizNet you're talking about, Mike?
Yes, it's the BizNet form. Yes.
Okay. Has that account been created by the district?
It gets created by the architect.
Okay. That hasn't happened yet, I don't think, right, Eric?
No, it has not. We can set it up tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, we did it for the other projects, the roofing projects, and once it's done, then a copy gets, Eric can download it and send it to us so we have it for the record. But those were the last three things that were needed, and then Ray is going to call the state next week sometime and say,
Michelle
have a
Dixon.
little meeting. How do we look? What else do we need? We got 10 days. Let us know.
So will he submit it on kind of a draft basis so the state can flip through it and make sure it's?
Well, they don't submit it on it. You submit it and then you call them
I see.
and say, what else do I need to do?
So Mike, just doubling back quick. So those the documents that you picked up today, along with the site plan, you were able to upload those scanned copies to the portal.
Kevin and I are uploading them tomorrow morning,
Okay. All right. Great.
and I'm going to call Ray and tell him we did that.
Would it be typical or recommended that the committee look at any parts of the submission? Is there anything that you guys think you need our input on at this point?
If you would like to be put to sleep, I would encourage you to read through the application, but generally it's. I mean, Chris, we can share. I know that it's kind of tough to get the information kind of, printed ahead of time. But Ray has an Excel sheet he uses that you could print off from that, so I can show you what the answers are to the things. I can send you those if you want a copy of that. That's not a problem.
I'm more concerned than anything that we know. I guess it's just one of those other set of eyes kind of things in terms of checking off that the resolutions are the resolutions that were approved and the amounts that are being the amounts for the estimates are what we all understood them to be, et cetera. If it can't be done logistically, I understand, but if it's the kind of thing where there's a link to a portal and we can review it without too much brain damage, that might be the responsible thing to do.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when you actually click the submit button, if it gives you the option to give yourself a printout of that completed application.
Okay.
We could, once that's completed, we can certainly.
Yeah, I mean, if you can see if that's possible, that would be great. If not, let me know. Let me know one way or the other, so we know that it's either not technically feasible or it is.
Okay.
Okay. So what would you guys? So based on what we're hearing this evening and what you need from Eric and his team, when do you guys think it's realistic? Would it be sometime early next week to be able to submit? Early to middle part of next week?
Yeah,
I would think yes. The form that gets filled out by the design professional is like 2.5 pages. They basically ask you for dollar amounts for different codes, different budget items like site work, demolition, things like that. And you just put the dollar amounts in.
So, and what we have to do is I'm going to talk to our estimator, Dave Longo, because the dollar values, right? We went to the resolutions are for slightly less than what's on those draft estimates that we put together, correct?
I thought they were for a little bit more, a little bit less.
A little more. Okay.
Well, the original ask was deleted by about $2 million. It went from about 79.4 to 77.4.
Oh, right. That was the mathematical.
Right, but
goof that Dave Martin picked up. Right.
Correct. Yeah. So those updated ones, though, those are each less than the amount that the resolution was for.
No, the resolution was for the 3 resolutions were added up equal the updated amount of money.
77.5. Okay. Yeah.
77.5. Yes.
Well, what I'm going to do in the interim too is I think Dave Longo in my office has a way of taking our estimate and spreading it across that SCG, the uniform, because that SCG 2000, that's the uniformat estimate form. So
That's correct.
let me.
But I mean,
first.
isn't it 3 submissions and there's a resolution for each school, right? So
It is. So there's a uniform estimate for each of the schools. So let me do this, Eric and Travis. If I can, let me just talk to Dave Longo in the morning. And in the meantime, if you could see about getting the BizNet set up, and then I'll work to get that at least the format information to you so that you're not going through taking our estimate and trying to populate that form.
That would be helpful. But does
Okay.
your estimate include any of the permit fees from the state
Yep.
or the city?
So we have, so ours is inclusive of the soft cost as well. Construction.
Yeah,
and
as
then
it should be. Yep.
So
Yep.
we should have everything there. But like I
Yeah,
said,
Eric, from your office, Pat did this form for the roof projects.
Yep, that's right.
okay.
And so we'll work with KG&D and we'll make sure that information gets into BizNet.
Okay. All right, real quickly, could whoever caller 2 is,
Yes, I was just going to ask. The second
briefly
phone
identify
call,
themselves?
thank you. I need it for attendance.
I think it might be me, Jessica Levy.
Oh, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
It
Hi,
is you.
Jessica.
I'm on my phone.
Thank you.
Sorry
No,
about
Yeah, no
that.
worries.
no, it's all good. Thank you.
It wouldn't be a meeting without you, Jessica, so thank you for joining. Thank you. Dave, if you need to hop, then why don't you do that, and we'll
And then Chris, maybe we can connect tomorrow or something if that works for you.
sure. Yeah, I'm around. Just ping me at a time that works.
Sure.
And
What I'll do is I'll just
Dave, before you jump,
Yeah.
you're definitely coming to the Tuesday morning meeting, correct?
I am coming to that meeting, and I am, and then I'm going to see who's going to accompany me to that. But I do have a hard stop at noon because I'm flying out that afternoon. So
We
just have
try
to
to
make
keep these meetings to 60 to 90 minutes at the longest, so you should be fine.
Yep. Okay. Yes, I did see that invite come through today, so I will be there. And just Eric, I don't know if you're going to touch base on this, but just I do have the Oxbridge pre-con schedule that I'm going through and just kind of pairing out the information that's unapplicable here, but just helping to identify all those different town approval steps and all those milestones so that we can get that pre-con schedule established for these 3 schools. So I am working on it.
That would be great. And also, if you had your cost estimate, your budget estimate for these 3 projects, that would be good too.
Oh yeah, that I can send to you. I'll send that to you either tonight or in the morning. That's not a problem. And then the schedule, my guess is I should have something for you when we meet on Tuesday.
Terrific.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
Is there anything else for me while I'm on?
That is all I had for you. So
Well, I guess I do want to officially thank you for selecting us as your CM for the projects. I do.
well, then you're officially
appreciate
welcome. So
work with you, work with the town and with the committee in a capacity more so than the grant application. So
we think we have a great team here. So everyone's really excited. So welcome aboard.
great. Okay.
And
All right.
Scott, I'm sorry. Can you just let us know who you're affiliated with?
I'm with CBRE.
That's
I've
right.
been to the meeting a couple of times. Yeah.
I apologize. Yeah, I'm sort
No,
of losing
not
my
a
mind
problem.
as I.
You guys have a little going on right now.
So no problem. Thank you. All right, Dave. Thanks very much.
Guys, thank you, everyone.
All
Have
right.
a good night.
Right.
So Eric, I'll turn it over to you to kind of bring the committee up to date. The committee, such as it is this evening, up to date. What I was going to talk about, but I think I may save this till we have a larger group, is discuss a little bit what the role of the committee is going to be in the design development process, and kind of how we want to approach that, whether it's one or more subcommittees or attendance at the planning meetings, et cetera. But with only 5 of us here, I may push that off to another time after we sort of hear from you, kind of how you guys view the process going, how you view the future, the next steps, the milestones, et cetera.
Well, just using that as a kickoff, I think actually we should probably get together, hopefully in person, probably on a monthly basis and give an update, which would include design options and where we are in the process, so that we're not just talking here, but we're actually doing a little bit more of a show and tell. And I think we can select specific times along the way which are appropriate, but definitely in the schematic design phase, probably a couple times that we'd want to get together with this committee, and probably again during the design development process that we get together with this group and really have a little bit longer of a show and tell.
And maybe just because we're not other than maybe Paul, we're not a very construction heavy group, Kevin and Paul, maybe you could just define briefly kind of what those different phases are, so we understand what those different milestones are.
So right now we're sort of in a conceptual stage, and it's really part of the schematic design phase. And schematic design is really encompasses the big picture of each of these campuses. So at the end of schematic design, we'd expect to have all the spaces that we have. We're basing this on the ed specs. We're meeting with principals, meeting with building representatives, and it might be the music department or art or different classroom leaders. And at the end of schematic design, we really have all the pieces in the right place, in the right size, the right adjacencies, and kind of a conceptual of what this would look like. And that's when, at that point, O&G and our office will do some cost estimating. I would expect that that phase is going to wind down sometime in September. So we'll be working throughout the summer. And by mid-September, hopefully we have both design as well as cost estimates put together, so that those cost estimates are more accurate than the one that we have that we're basing this entire project on. And if that estimate or the estimates at the end of schematic design are a little bit higher than where they need to be, it's a good point to stop, look at what we've done, and make decisions as to how to bring the project back on budget. Once we're comfortable with where we're going, then you're going to authorize us into the next phase of design, which is referred to as design development. That's going to be another 8 to 10 week process between mid-September and mid to end of November. At which point, at the end of design development is the next layer of information. Now we're getting into do we have lockers? How many lockers? Do they lock? What's in the science rooms? What type of equipment is going into the science rooms? We start to look at power and data and all those features to make sure that everything's included, because at the end of design development, we will have 100% of the scope of the project. We won't have every single detail on those drawings, but we will know 100% of what we're doing. And at that point, in a lot of cases, if this was a private project, the construction manager could go out to almost a bid with that amount of information and could create a guaranteed maximum price. So at the end of design
could I just ask a quick? I'm sorry. Could
Sure.
I ask a quick question? So what? At which point do you do kind of the laser scanning that we were talking about during your all's
Yes.
or during
David
the
Martin
CM
wanted me to ask that.
presentations?
Yeah.
And do you also, at what point do you, and I know you talked about next Tuesday, start bringing the construction manager into the process to discuss, to discuss feasibility, constructability, feasibility. You might have an interesting schematic and they might say, gee, that's going to be hard to build, or no, that's not going to be hard to build.
All right. So, well, first of all, in terms of the scanning, we're planning to reach out to 3 or 4 scanning companies this next week and get proposals from them based on what we think that we need to have scanned on the generally at this point it's just going to be on the outside of the building. If we need some scanning on the inside, most of the inside, and this was also talking with O&G, our engineers are going to get above, they're going to get ladders out. We're going to go above the ceilings. We're going to look and see what's up there. And hopefully from the existing drawings information that we have and from what we can see above the ceilings, we won't actually need to do any real laser scanning above the ceilings, but we might. And then hopefully and also starting this next week, the architects and engineers are going to go into the buildings, and we have the plans. We've drawn through the existing condition plans already, and we're going to take those and confirm that the spaces that are out there actually match the spaces that are on the drawings that have been provided to us. And obviously there's going to be some spaces that you've modified since 1990 or since 1970 that we don't have that information, or you know, it's not on the documents that we have, and so we will make those modifications and corrections because we really want to have an accurate set of existing conditions. If we find that we need to have some interior scanning for whatever reason, because we're going to do something wonderful with one of the existing cafetoriums or something like that, and we really need to have interior elevations, then that'll be a specific task later on. But right now, we really would like to have the exterior elevations that we're planning to add additions to scans so that we have very accurate information there. So,
Okay, great.
and then Chris, you jumped ahead to meeting 4. I'll get back to that. I'm going to
Sorry.
start with the meeting 1 and sort of walk through what we've been doing for the last few weeks. And yeah, so we've been meeting, the subset of this building committee has been meeting weekly. We plan to continue to meet weekly through the end of July. There's a lot of information we're trying to get to understand and decisions to be made fairly quickly. And so we feel that it's really important to get together on a very regular basis and hopefully have action items addressed relatively quickly as well, so that by the end of July, we have a clear path of direction for each of these 3 schools. And that's a lot of information that we're going to try to disseminate. And if it extends into August, it does, but we're really trying to focus our effort right now. So that's why maybe this next meeting, because we will have had 4 or 5 meetings by the time this group gets back together. If we could do that in person, and maybe we won't be able to because I think it's right before the 4th of July weekend. It's the Thursday before 4th of July weekend. And so I don't know if people are leaving early, but if not, that would be a great time to get together and sort of have more of a pictorial review of what
Get
we've been
together
doing.
with the committee as versus with the school district the way we have been on Tuesdays.
That's
Yeah.
right. Get together with this group and do a little bit more of a show and tell.
Okay.
This could be PowerPoint. I mean, it could be a Zoom call like this. If everybody is in different parts of the world and the Zoom is going to work, we can do it that way. And it could wait a meeting after that. But I don't want to get too far down this road and have a committee member say, "Hey, listen, I'm not really 100% in agreement with the direction that we're going here."
Right.
Oh, Eric,
See,
if I might interject, I spoke with Jill today. We just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that it's what you're doing right now is the really important work of meeting with the administration, understanding the ed specs, and making sure that the spaces that we are thinking about creating they work in each of the buildings. But they are the initial designs, and if anybody has any concerns or input, this is the initial set of designs. But as Eric said, we do need to get input so that you're not going too far down the road before.
so do we want to think
Sorry,
about either? So you're thinking maybe either June 30th, the week of what would be June 30 or July 7th to do that?
Either of
We'll
those
talk a
weeks.
little later tonight about whether we want to rejigger our schedule because Thursday night seems like they may not be optimal for everybody. but the meeting that would be one of those 2 weeks, is that what you're thinking?
That's what I was thinking. The
Okay.
4th of July week may be difficult, and the Thursday before the 4th of July may be difficult. So maybe we want to do it the Wednesday, the 29th, as opposed to Thursday, the 30th, if that
Yeah.
you know,
And
works
we're
for you.
gonna, okay, well, we'll, all right, we can
look at that.
work on that. Cool.
Okay. So meeting one was an organizational kickoff discussion. I think we mentioned this at our last meeting. It was really about points of contact, roles and responsibilities, the goals and strategy of the group, talking in draft form on schedule and what we understood the overall budget was that we're ultimately working towards. And the core group that's been meeting on a weekly basis includes Dr. Adley, Chris, Jill, and Mike and myself. And then each meeting, the topic is a little bit different, and the group expands accordingly depending on who should be in the room that given week. So our second meeting included the central office administration, which was Chris Strandberg was there from curriculum, Shirley Klein was there from special ed, Joan Medgigan.
Yet
Is that
again.
Okay, I'll get that. Instructional technology, and Jeff Adams was also there from informational technology. That meeting focused on reviewing the model program for the 3 schools, which has been derived from the ed specs as was created for the Oxford Elementary School. So we're trying to be consistent amongst all 3 schools. We're not designing each individual school for its own program. We're designing it collectively. Now, obviously, each building is a little bit different in terms of its shape, and so some of the program will fit slightly differently. But in general, we're trying to make all 3 as consistent as possible. We also, at that meeting, presented the 3 competition architectural firms' floor plans. So it wasn't just our work, but it was the work of the other 2 firms, and we used them to discuss sort of the advantages and disadvantages of each of the building programs and the campus concepts. So we did that for Hindley, and then we did it for Holmes, and we did it for Royal, and we received some pretty good feedback because, you know, in our opinion, the best idea should win. And so whether we came up with it or somebody else came up with it, we really wanted to make sure that we understood all the different ideas that had been put on the table. And I'm sure there's going to be multiple derivatives of that as we move forward, as to making sure that these projects are as good as they can be. The action items from that meeting included Shirley was going to review the resource room sizes, quantities, and locations in the buildings, because each of these schools have multiple names of different types of special ed resource rooms, and we wanted to make sure that the ed specs sort of outline most of that. We wanted to confirm it and make sure that it was accurate, so that as we move forward, we're being consistent there, and also how we're using resource rooms, because the ed specs sort of call out what types of spaces should be there, but they don't necessarily say where they should be in the building. And it doesn't call out in any case resource spaces directly associated with the grade level houses. And that's something that in our projects that have been really successful. I know at your Ox Ridge project, you have cores or learning cores or commons within each of the grade groupings, which is breakout space from the classroom that individuals or groups can gather at, and they're really effective, amazing spaces that are used in many different ways. And that wasn't in the ed specs. Obviously, that was something that SLAM had added to that program, and we think it's really an important aspect, and looking for ways, even within these existing buildings where there isn't resource space immediately adjacent, how can we carve out space to create that those opportunities? Jeff was going to review the tech requirements. Right now, all 3 of those buildings have Cat3 data wiring in the buildings. We haven't used Cat3 in 20 years. So the expectation here is that we're going to be looking at rewiring these 3 buildings with Cat 5, Cat 6 wiring as opposed to the Cat 3, and that may also at the same time alter the actual location of where the data closet is. The data rooms in each of these buildings house not just the data but the security systems, the telephone, and I'm sure there's something else, Mike, there I'm missing. But some of that equipment's going to really want to stay where it is because we have a finite amount of money. But it may mean, or it may be that we can gain some space back in a couple of these classrooms that have become undersized because of data storage, and relocate that to a more appropriate place. Our office is going to, so now getting into individual schools, our office is going to look at Hindley, or has looked at Hindley, in terms of how pedestrians and local bicyclists, kids that come from their house, get to campus and get from the front door back to the Post Road crosswalk in a safe manner. As you know, that at Hindley, we are considering having one additional curb cut on Post Road, which will be a state approval process. But that's generally where the kids today go out to Post Road and then they walk down on Post Road to get into their cars. So we want to make sure that from the front door to wherever they're going, there's a safe access point. And so that's something that we're going to be working on. Let's see what else we have.
Eric, I'm going to interrupt you for one more second. We're going to be out of quorum in a couple of minutes. We have Jameson left for a couple of minutes. Chris, what we may need to do is to adjourn the meeting, but continue the discussion. I'll leave the recording on as far as so that the update is given so that everyone has the information. Does that make sense?
Sure. Can I do one bit of housekeeping before we do that? And
sure.
Apologies
Eric, I apologize that we are interrupting you. If you could just give us 1 minute.
That's my fault. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I can
If
stay
you
till
we're happy you could join us.
Yeah, I'll stay till 45, so that you got till
okay.
45.
Well, let me just, with apologies to Eric for distracting, the one bit of housekeeping that I'd like to talk about briefly is our meeting schedule. As I said, we'd gotten some feedback that this time on Thursdays wasn't optimal for some folks, including Dave Cravenzola. And so maybe what we can do is people can let Sarah know what works better, whether it's Wednesdays, for example, whether it's Wednesdays at 5, Wednesdays at 6. If there are better time slots, I think what we've done is we've locked in this time slot through the end of June. But for going forward, and we can also talk about maybe a less frequent, we may not need to be doing every week. And we can hold special meetings, like when we're going to have get-togethers with Eric to go through the presentations that he was describing. We can do those on a more of a special meeting basis. But maybe, Sarah, if I could ask you to, just as a follow-up, to send an email out to the group to solicit that information, because
a
bunch of folks aren't here and don't know what we're talking about, and we can rejigger the meeting schedule. And then also maybe in that email, 2 other things. One, see what we think the best time for the presentation with Eric and his team is, whether it's Wednesday the 29th or the week after. And then also, do we really need to meet both next week and the week after? If we do the presentation with Eric, I don't know that there's anything that we're going to have to be voting on coming up. And so maybe we just do the presentation with Eric either the 29th or the 6th or the 7th, and we cancel one of the meetings in one of the other week.
Okay.
So that's the only other business I had that we needed to go through in quorum. So I guess you actually answered the question I was going to ask, which was procedurally. So I guess we would get a motion to adjourn
the meeting, and I can leave the recording going.
Vote to adjourn, and then let Eric continue with his report on a non-quorum basis.
We won't have any more meetings to discuss. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to discuss. So if I could get a motion to adjourn.
I'll move it.
Jameson
Thank you,
moves,
Randy.
Randy second. All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
aye. Okay, so the meeting's officially adjourned. Bye, Jameson.
Bye. Sorry.
Eric, no
Thanks, Eric.
worries. Good luck this evening. Back to you, Eric.
Uh, I actually have a question for Paul, because I know, Paul, you're anxiously interested in the mechanical electrical systems of the building. Are there times in this process that you want to get together with us and review, similar to the way that we've been meeting at 10 o'clock every Tuesday morning? Is there a time or a place that would work for you, so that when BGA and their team get to a point where they wanted to discuss stuff, that you can get involved as well?
Absolutely. Why don't we figure out a time that works for Thursdays and Fridays are terrible. So, my better days are probably mid to late afternoons on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So that would be my initial take.
Okay.
I
And
could also, I mean, if it's a morning, I could also start out here and then go to New Haven. So, if that works better for somebody, if they want to do like a 9 o'clock or something, I could work around that and work and then head up. But we can talk offline when we get to that
that's
point.
fine. I mean, it
But I
might be
definitely,
hard.
I definitely want to be involved with that, and I'm sure as Kevin and as Mike leaves, we'll need to be.
Yeah, are there
Well,
other folks? Maybe Kevin and Mike, you can think if there are other folks, and certainly folks from the committee that have an interest in that. But if there are folks from the town or the school district that you think might um, be useful to be part of that, we can put those together.
I'm sure Mike and I will put our heads together. We can come up with a few names.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll think of a few guys or gals that should be giving input. Sure.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
okay, I'm just going to jump back
Keep
in.
going. Yeah.
So I was in the middle of meeting 2, where we've been, what the discussion or action items were. Another action item was Dr. Adley had some comments about open courtyards versus enclosed courtyards, meaning that in some of the design concepts, the courtyard had 3 walls, 3 sides to it, and the 4th side was open. And then in other concepts, it was fully enclosed, because there was a corridor that looped around, creating an outdoor space within the center of the building. And so he's thinking about that. I think his initial comment to us recently was really, it's about circulation and the correct program, more so than open and closed, so that if it works best for the building and we have a good reason for doing what we're doing, and we have appropriate use for those courtyards, and they can be well utilized space, he's fine with that. Now moving on to homes. In our concept, I think pretty much all the general location of the spaces and adjacencies were pretty well received, with the exception of the music. The music suite really wants to be adjacent to or as close to the cafeteria and stage as possible. You currently have it in the modulars in back, which you just sort of walk across the yard there to get onto the stage and to the cafeteria. But it definitely should not be on the 2nd floor. And so we went back and we've done a little studying as to where the music suite can be. And there's a couple different options, which we will share with you at the next meeting. In Royal, I think everybody was sort of energized by the competition concept that we came up with Royal, where we have these modular pre-engineered structures which attach to the outsides of the classrooms, right sizing the classrooms. It's a really great idea. Now it's talking with ONG and unfortunately Dave's not here, but we're going to be talking about this specific issue next Tuesday when we get together. And what the committee basically said was, let's look at a couple different ways to do it. One being that concept, and another being putting a more sizable addition which attaches back to the existing, and look at which is most, from a constructability point of view, the best, from a phasing point of view, the best, and from an ultimate educational point of view, the best concept, as well as from a financial point of view, making sure that it's within the budget constraints that we have. And so we're going to be developing a couple of concepts there, and we should be getting back to this committee at this next meeting and showing those two options. So then that was meeting 2. Meeting 3 included the elementary school principals, and Kevin was there as well. That meeting focused first on the overall process, since most of these principals haven't been through a capital improvement project like this. We wanted to talk about what the different phases of the design, approvals, and then ultimately the permitting and construction would be. So we explained that process with them. The second is similar to the previous meeting. We went over the model program. We want to make sure that the principals will confirm its accuracy and that it's consistent across all 3 schools. And third, we reviewed the conceptual designs for each school with them. But in this case, it was just our work. It was not the work of the other 2 architectural firms. And this sort of included a first pass at those alternate approaches I just mentioned at both Holmes for music and at Royal for alternate ways to right-size classrooms and provide the correct program in the building. And so then that just leads us to this next meeting, and this next meeting is more of a construction and engineering discussion next Tuesday, which includes representation from ONGAP, as well as our full engineering team. They expect that the civil engineer, the structural engineer, and mechanical electrical engineer will be there. We can go through those different concepts, start to understand what the processes that we will be using to work together. This is a collaboration. We succeed or fail as one. So it's really important to have a very good, strong relationship with the construction manager. I'm sure that we will. Well, we'll be going through those design concepts, talk about constructability of each, and initial phasing ideas, and then discuss the overall schedule to make sure that their schedule and our schedule are consistent, and that we can meet the schedule. Hold on. Hey, Molly, please. Thank you. Family in the background. And so that we can meet the phasing goals, and then ultimately, I think we'll even talk very briefly about the cost estimate, how it was developed, and what we're looking at now, because we don't want to go down a path that at the end of this phase we find out we're 15% over budget. That's not going to help. So this is a very important, that the costing of this project at every step is a really critical aspect of the success of the project. So what else? Surveys. Mike provided us with PDFs of the updated surveys for each of the campuses.
Okay.
We're looking forward to getting the CAD versions of those so that we can use those for our site plan development. So we have that. As I said at the beginning of this discussion, we're going to probably put together, get proposals from laser scan companies so that we can get started on that work as well.
Mike, would you mind shooting a PDF of the same PDFs to me? I want to take a look in particular at Holmes and what the survey shows about the Curtis property, but it would be helpful to have the PDFs of the other 2 as well.
Sure. I'll do that tomorrow morning.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then this, I guess, is probably more for Chris than anybody else, but we're in the process. We did put together a draft professional service contract. that's in the process of being reviewed. There's two elements to that that are going to be tricky in terms of whether they're part of the base contract or some sort of additional services. And the first has to do with that curb cut for Hindley. And that process can be very involved, and it might be challenging putting a fixed number to that right now. And then the other is that Curtis property and what the actual development, what our involvement civil engineering wise and architectural wise will be on that parcel, because that's not something that I think as an overall group, we're not really sure what we're doing there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the case of both of those, right? Those are very TBD, right? And it's all sort of in the nature of studying whether, with respect to both of those, what's feasible, right? And probably the Hindley stormwater comes under that category as well.
Well, I think we can put an estimated value to that one, but I'd like you to know generally what your costs are for the overall project, because that's really critical to the overall budgeting of this. So anything.
Yeah,
that we
no,
can
understood.
helps.
And we should, and I'm not sure, whether that's something that we need to, get the base. Maybe it's the kind of thing where we need to get the base contract and the base fee, excluding those two items, done with what amounts to an agreement to agree once we have an understanding what we think is feasible on those two pieces, and we have something that looks like at least a basic scope.
That's probably the right approach.
Okay.
So I can't believe it. Mike Lynch, is this your last committee meeting? Or do you have another
next week.
one or two?
I got Tuesday and Thursday.
Do you
Not
all
looking
know
forward
that?
to that, Mike. Sorry.
Do you all know that I've been working with Mike Lynch for 24 years?
At least, right? Yes.
I wish I've been working with Mike for 24 years. I've only been working with Mike for a couple of months, and it's been awesome. I wish it could be longer.
Thank you.
But Kevin, I think, is going to kill this, so we're excited to have him on board.
100%. High bar, Kevin, but I know you can get there.
Thank you. Big shoes, but Mike did volunteer to have our next meeting at his house.
Okay.
No, I'll be home and I'll be thinking of you, but I won't.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. Well, no, thank you. That
Eric.
that gets us done within the hour. So that's super helpful. And I'm just back to the contract. I'm meeting with the town attorney Monday. I've now gotten feedback from the various folks that I felt like I needed feedback from. So we hopefully will get that turned back around to you soon. So
great.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. If we don't speak ahead of then, I hope everyone has a great weekend. And thanks, Eric, for that presentation. That was really helpful.
Welcome.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Tomorrow, Chris.
Have a good night.
Thanks all.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.